Hi, my name is Deb Weiss-Gelmi, and this is a mixed level class today, level 1 to pushing a little more toward the level 2 side. You'll need props today, so a chair. If you don't have a folding chair, a dining room chair is fine. A set of 3 to 5 blankets. If you use towels, you'll need a bit more than that. A strap or a necktie or something like this around your house. A mat, a block, and access to a wall would be really great. Our first pose today is Supta Padangustasana. Supta is reclined, and Padangustasana is hand to big toe pose. So first watch, I lie down on my back, and I have my strap handy, and I lie down, flowing my shoulders to my hands, lengthening my feet away for a bit of a Supta Tadasana, so a reclined mountain pose. So extend through the inner heel, big toe mound, flow the shoulders toward the hands, soften the abdomen. And then bend your legs, put your feet on the floor. Then I bend my legs one at a time, pull my knee into my chest, loop the belt around the foot, extend the foot up toward the ceiling, lengthening through the inner heel and big toe mound. And as I lengthen the top leg, I also lengthen the lower leg. And so I extend through the inner foot, the inner heel, big toe mound, and bring the little toe side back toward that outer hip. And then I rotate my thigh a bit from the inside out as I press the toe up toward the ceiling or extend the toe up toward the ceiling. Then I put both straps into my right hand, same side as the leg, and then take the leg out to the side. Now if I just took the leg out to the side and I just dropped it down, then it would be the opposite of what we're working toward today. We want to work on the outer hip here. So we want to take the outer thigh and press it toward the bone, especially at the outer hip or the hip socket. So as I go down, I'm keeping the opposite side of my body on the floor and taking the leg out, pressing that outer thigh in, especially at that outer hip as we take the leg down. So you'll notice that my leg doesn't go all the way to the floor. I'm using the outer hip to keep that leg where I want it. And then I extend through the inner heel, big toe mound, and then soften the inner thigh. And then to bring the leg back up, today we're just going to bend both legs and meet our feet on the floor. So now it's your turn. So lie down on your back, and then we'll start out in a Tadasana pose, so a Supta Tadasana, reclined mountain pose. So extend through the inner heel, big toe mound. Your feet can be hip distance apart. Flow the shoulders toward the hands. Soften the face. Lengthen the crown of the head away from the shoulders. Another way of saying it is lengthen the back of the skull away from the shoulders. So that we're not in a relaxed position like in Shavasana, we're in Tadasana, a solid pose. So Supta Tadasana. So from here, bend both legs, put your feet on the floor. Find your strap if you're using it. You can also grab your big toe with your first and second finger. But with your strap, bend the knee into the chest, loop the strap around the foot, extend the inner heel, big toe mound up, as you also straighten your left leg out. So the right leg is up in the air, the left leg is lengthened out. So as the leg is up in the air, extend through the inner heel, big toe mound. And the little toe side comes back toward that outer hip. What's nice about having the straps in your hand is you can use the straps like a marionette puppet string, pulling a little bit more, very gently on the little toe side to bring that side of the foot down toward the hip, and the other side, the big toe mound, going up toward the ceiling. So press the thigh away from the torso, pressing that thigh bone away, lengthening the pelvis on this side. And then as you put your straps into your right hand, or if you're holding the big toe, taking the leg out to the right, pressing the outer thigh toward the bone, especially at the hip socket. Extend through the inner thigh, lengthen the shoulder away with the foot, gripping that outer right hip. Seeing if you can find the muscles around that hip socket, but at the same time softening the inner thigh. Softening the inner thigh. Lengthening the big toe mounds away from each other. And then to come out, we'll bend both legs, put our feet on the floor. Reestablish your hips, meaning try to have them level with each other. And then you'll bring the left knee toward your chest, loop the belt around the foot, extend the foot up. Again, you can also have your 2 fingers in the big toe mound and extending up that way. So if you have the straps on, you can use that like those puppet strings, lengthening that big toe mound up, bringing the little toe mound down toward that outer left hip. Finding awareness of that outer hip before we even leave, meaning before we even take that left leg down. So press the thigh away from the pelvis, lengthening away from that hip bone there. So taking the thigh toward the wall behind you. And then you'll switch the straps into the left hand or grab that big toe. You can extend your right arm out to the side, and as you take the left leg to the side, press the outer thigh into the bone, especially at the hip socket. Soften the inner thigh, but feel the gripping of the outer left hip and the outer left thigh going toward the bone, and then pressing the right thigh toward the floor, lengthening through the pelvis. Lengthen the foot away from the shoulder, flowing the shoulder toward the hand. And then taking the big toe mounds away from each other. And then to come out, we'll bend both legs, put the feet on the floor, and then roll to your side to come up. So our next pose is a standing version of what we just did on the floor. So it's Utthita Parshva Padangusthasana. So Utthita is upright, Parshva is to the side, and Padangusthasana, as we just did, is hand to big toe pose. So first watch, I'll show you the shape of the pose, and then we'll talk about details when you go in. So I stand about an arm's length away from the wall, and then I lift my leg, loop the belt around it, hold onto the belt with my arm on the inside of the leg, and then open up the leg, and then lift the leg up to the wall. Okay, so we'll talk about details in a moment. To come on out, you want to try to come down with control. So bringing that leg back up, sharpen the inner heel and foot toward the floor as you take the foot back down, and then we'll turn around. So the inner edge of the heel and big toe. So when you're holding the foot, you want to cut the inner heel and big toe mound down. So there's a sharpness on that foot as you're taking your leg down. And as you're taking it into the pose as well. So let's do this together. So stand at an arm's length away, into Tadasana. Get solid on your feet, press through your inner heel, big toe mound. Now lift the left leg up, loop the belt around the foot, hold the strap or your big toe. Now this is where we're cutting that inner edge of the big toe and the inner heel toward the floor. Soften the inner thigh, open up the leg, lift that leg up onto the wall, press through the inner heel, big toe mound. If you're holding the strap and your elbow is bent, then grab the big toe mound. Press through the inner heel, big toe mound, flow the shoulder toward the foot, The top thigh, that lifted leg, rolls from the inside out, and then the outer hip is going forward toward the camera or toward your screen. The other hand can be on the hip, rotate the chest and the navel toward the standing leg, and lift the chest up. Back armpit to front armpit, shoulders away from the ears. Press through that inner heel, big toe mound. And then to come out, bend that leg and try to, with control, cut that inner heel, big toe mound toward the floor, and then release that foot back to Tadasana. And then we'll do the other side. Arms length away, and then lift the left leg, loop the belt around the foot, right hand on your hip, open the left leg, and then lift that leg up onto the wall. So you can hold either the belt or the foot, but it's best if you have your arm straight and flowing that shoulder toward the hand. Press the big toe mound into the wall and the inner heel. Rotate the top thigh from the inside out, and then take that outer hip forward toward the wall in front of you as you turn the chest and navel more toward the straight leg side, and then keep the outer right hip in and lift the chest and shoulders away from the ears. Lifting and lengthening, press through the big toe mound and the inner heel. And that outer thigh, the top thigh rolling back, and that back thigh going forward toward the wall in front of you. And then to come out, keep that outer right hip in, bend the leg, bring the foot down, or bring the knee out in front of you, cut the inner edge of the heel and big toe as you go down. And our next pose is Ardha Chandrasana. We're going to do this pose with the support of the chair. The first version that we do is has a different foot than is classically done in this pose, but we're working on some hip awareness today and some hip actions, so that's why we're doing it this way. So first watch, I have my foot, normally the foot would be this way for this particular pose, but we're going to turn the foot so it's actually, so my right foot is forward, so it's actually going toward the right, okay, or away from your screen. And so the main thing to remember in this pose is to not straighten this knee. So do not straighten this knee. We do in the regular pose, but in this one we're keeping it bent because of the way that our foot is on the floor. And so with our leg like that, then we're opening our torso up, our forearm on the chair, and lengthening. And I'll talk about a lot of points here, but the main thing to remember is to not bend or not straighten. Do not straighten the standing leg. Okay? And then another important thing to remember is when you come out, don't come out in a regular way. Kind of come up and then face the wall, so you end up in the same way that your leg is, that standing leg is pointing. Okay? So let's do it together. So the right foot is facing toward the chair, and then we turn it so it's parallel to the chair. Parallel to the chair with the bent leg, and then the right forearm on the chair, and then lifting that back leg. So you can feel how the action of the hips is different. The rotation of this thigh is what we're working on in the regular pose, and then extending the leg away, that top leg away. So I'm lengthening through the pelvis, feeling this action of the rotating hip. It's rotating right up at the hip socket. So open the chest up. Just make sure you don't straighten that bent leg. The standing leg needs to stay bent. Lengthen across the pelvis and feel that action of that outer hip on that right side. The hip rotating extensively. And then remember, when we come out, to not come up in the normal way, but to lift and turn so you end up facing the wall behind you, so your feet land together. And then we'll do the other side. So the left foot goes parallel with the left it goes parallel with the chair. The left foot goes parallel with the chair. And then the left forearm down. And then lifting up that back leg. And experiencing that intense rotation of that left hip. Keep the left leg bent, fully bent. And then lengthening through the pelvis of the lifted leg and opening the chest. But keeping that leg bent, but feeling the left intenseness or awareness. Feeling the awareness of the left hip at that hip socket musculature around that left hip. Open the chest. And then when we do come out here, stand and face the back wall, allowing those 2 feet to land next to each other. So now with that hypersensitive or hyper-awareness of that outer hip, now we'll go into the regular foot for Ardha Chandrasana, half moon pose. So now my right foot's forward. So we'll do this together. Right foot forward, right forearm down, left hand under the back of the chair. And as you straighten this leg, take your thigh from the inside out, like we did in the last pose, but a little less intensely. Okay, so now pressing that thigh toward the bone, lengthening through the pelvis, extending through that inner heel, big toe mound, opening the chest. Opening the chest. Soften the face. Feeling that outer right hip. The whole outer right thigh coming toward the bone, but especially toward that hip. Open the chest. And then we'll come on down and do the other side. Now it's the left foot toward the chair. The left forearm on the chair seat. Open up, straighten that left leg as you take the thigh from the inside out. Feeling that outer left hip, the outer thigh, the outer left hip. Rotating that thigh from the inside out, lengthening across the pelvis, lengthening through the crown of the head. Open the chest up. Feeling that connection of the thigh into the hip socket. And then we'll come up. And we'll do Utthita Trikonasana triangle pose with that same awareness of the legs or those hips. So jump or step your feet wide. Turn your feet to the right. Press through the outer edge of the back foot. Lift and lengthen the side chest up. And then that right leg that we're going to tip over, that thigh rolling from the inside out. Press through the big toe mound in the front, but roll that hip from the inside out so we can feel that outer hip as we did in those last poses. So feeling the outer right hip and then tipping over the right leg. Hand on the shin or the block, top hand on the hip for a moment, roll the chest open. Roll the chest open, extend that top arm up. If your hand does go down farther, you can do that. Take your shoulders away from the ears. And feel the rotation of that thigh, that top thigh, the right leg, moving toward the wall behind you. And then the back outer right hip going toward the wall in front of you, opening up off that leg. And then press through the outer edge of the back foot to come up. Toes forward and to the other side. Rolling that whole thigh out from the inside out. Press the big toe mound down. Sharpen the edge of the outer foot in the back and then tip over the left side as that thigh is rolling out and that outer left hip coming into the body toward the front of you, and open up the chest off that. Spread the arms, shoulders away from the ears. Soften the face. And press through the outer edge of the back foot to come up. Toes forward, fingertips together, and jump or step back to mountain pose. So we're going to take the same work that we've been doing with the hips, the rolling of that front thigh, into Sirsasasna, which is tree pose. So you can, if you wish, stand with your elbows against the wall for measurement, just so you have some stability by the wall. You can put a chair next to you, or you can just stand freely in the middle of the room. So we start in Tadasana. So for Sirsasasna, tree pose, you'll open up your right leg and then soften that inner thigh. Lift that right foot high up on your inner thigh. Keep the outer left hip in. So thinking of that inner heel of that lifted leg cutting in to the outer hip, pressing toward each other. And then soften the inner thigh all the way out to the knee. Soften, soften. And this thigh coming, as we've been working it, in that outer right hip into the body. So top thigh up and over, hip into the body. Also softening toward the knee, back and around toward the knee, and toward that hip. So all the actions that we are doing is heading toward that back hip, gripping in. And then the navel and chest toward that straight leg again. You can choose where you wish to have your hands. If your arms are up, move the triceps toward each other. Soften the face. Shoulders away from the ears. Outer left hip in. Lift that front body up. Soften the face. And then we'll bring that leg down, back to Tadasana. Flow the shoulders toward the hands. Open up the left leg, lift that foot high up on the inner thigh. The first thing really to do is soften that inner thigh. Grip the outer right hip in. Again, so the inner edge of that foot cutting into the leg, meeting up with that outer hip coming in. Top thigh goes from the inside out, as we've been doing. Flow the inner thigh to the knee, and then the outer knee back toward that outer hip. So again, all that action culminating in that outer left hip coming forward, gripping it in, and then the outer right hip coming in as well. And then you can choose your hands. If your arms are up, for Vasistasana, draw the triceps toward each other. Soften the face. Shoulders away from the ears. Soften the face. And then bring the hands together and the foot down to the floor. Our next pose is Anantasana. Anantasana is a side reclining pose. It's also called Vishnu's couch pose. So what we'll do is we'll do this one together because you can see the camera as we're doing it. So you'll have the mat in this orientation and we'll lie down on the edge of the mat to use it as a straight line because we're working to have our body in a straight line. So we'll do this together. So let's start out on your right side. And so the outer edge of my right foot is sort of hooking along the edge. The outer edge of the mat is intersecting the arch. And then I hook the outer edge of my right foot there. And then I align my right knee on the edge of that line, and the right hip, and the right side waist, and the armpit, lengthening my arm away, and then putting the left leg on top. So this is the base of the pose. So I take my tailbone in, the muscles of the middle buttock pressing forward, gripping that sacrum in. And then my thighs press back, and my ribs back a little bit, lengthening the elbow away as I bend my hand and put it under the skull. So this hand can serve as a bit of a kickstand while you're prepping your body. So the inner thighs go back, extend through the inner heel, big toe mound. And then that top hand might be able to rest on your side. Now, if you've never done this before and you find it super easy, it might mean that you're not quite in a straight line. Getting in the straight line is the difficult part. So I'm lengthening my elbow away, trying to make it so there's no space between my armpit and the floor. And then open the top chest, moving from the back armpit to the front armpit and taking the shoulder back. And then you can support the back of your skull and look up. Vishnu's couch. So back armpit to the front armpit, flowing the shoulder toward the hand. Balancing. And then we'll do the other side. So you can unprop your head, roll to your tummy. If you want to just roll to the other side, you can do that. I'm going to turn for the use of the camera. So now it's the left foot. The edge of the mat is in the middle of the arch of the foot, the left foot this time. The edge of the mat goes along the edge of the knee, the hip, the armpit as you stretch your arm up and over, and then the right leg stacks on top. So now that buttocks, the middle buttocks comes forward, gripping those muscles around the tailbone, the sacrum, coming forward. And then the thighs go back, the ribs can go back slightly, the top hand if you're ready, although let's prop the head first. So I lengthen the elbow away, prop the back of my skull or cradle it in my hand, and then open the shoulder. The shoulder goes back, the back armpit to the front armpit comes up, the back armpit to the front armpit, and lifting the shoulder up and over and flowing that hand down toward the hip. Anantasana. Cradling my head, so my head is looking a little bit up toward the ceiling. My top shoulder is flowing away from my head, but the back armpit to the front armpit is making that opening in the chest happen. And then we'll put the hand down. You can roll to your front body, lift yourself up. So now you will do this pose a second time, and you can either play with lifting the leg like we're going to do, or you can repeat that same pose as you're watching us play with lifting the leg. So think of this as just a fun possible addition. So now on the right side again, the edge of the mat is at the arch of the foot, the middle of the arch, and the knee, and the hip, and the waist, and the ribs, and the armpit, lengthening the arm away, starting out with resting the head on the arm. Draw the middle buttock forward, the thighs back. Extend through the inner heel, big toe mound, and bring that little toe side back to those outer hips. So we've been working the hips a lot. And then lift your head, cradle the back of your skull into your hand. And then we can, just as we did it in the standing pose where I showed you the sharpness of that inner heel, big toe mount, sharpen, sharpen, sharpen as you bring that knee toward your armpit. Our hands are on the inside of the foot. And then you can play with extending possibly that leg up. Anantasana. Rolling the back armpit to the front armpit, the shoulder away from the ear, extending through the inner heel, big toe mount. And then try to come down in the same way that you went up, bending the knee, arm in front of the knee, cutting through the inner heel, big toe mound, and then extending that leg back for our Anantasana. And then we'll go to the other side. And again, you don't have to keep rolling. You don't have to keep moving back and forth. I just need to so you can see me. So now it's the outer edge of the left foot, and the left knee, and the left hip, and the left ribs, and armpit, and arm lengthening. Really getting the outer edge of that foot on the mat. And then stack up the other leg. Lift the head, prop the head with that arm. Trying to get space, all the space gone between your armpit and the floor. Press the tailbone in, the thighs back, the inner thighs back, the thighs back. Extend through the inner heel, big toe mound with those little toe sides coming back toward the outer hips. And then the arm on the top of the body. Roll that shoulder, flow the shoulder toward the hand, back armpit to the front armpit. Soften the face. And then the next part is just for fun. Give yourself a break if you roll back. Bend that leg. Hold on to that big toe. And then lift that arm, lift that leg up toward the ceiling. Extend through the inner heel, big toe mound, flowing the shoulder toward that hand, drawing that buttocks in, drawing those outer hips in, lift, and then bring that leg down, trying to do so with control. The arm in front of the foot, extend the leg out, arm back to your side, and then rest on your front body, rest your forearms, your forehead on your forearms. And then push yourself up. So our next pose is Vasistasana. The Vasistasana is named after a sage, but it's what we often call side plank. So for this one, we'll just play a little bit. So we're going to do a couple different ways of supporting our Vasistasana, and I'll show you the first one. Scoot your mat into the wall with a little bit of mat up the wall. And then watch first. I kneel in front of the wall and back my feet right into the wall. And then I put my hands down, lift up into a plank pose, press my heels and big toe mounds into the wall, and then turn, put the right hand down to the floor, scoot the right leg into the wall, so my foot is right on the wall, and then put the foot right on top. So I have this support system of my feet on the wall. And then open the shoulder as we did in our last pose, back armpit to front armpit, opening the arm, opening the chest up. And then if you want to take your arm up, you can. Vasistasana. And then to come back down, allow your feet to move away from the wall a little bit to get back to plank, and then we'll go to the other side together. Okay, so this is just one way to play where we can find a little bit of success with our feet supported on the wall. Okay, so let's do it together. Back yourself into the wall. Let's go to plank pose first. So feet against the wall, hands out underneath your shoulders, lifting up. My feet are supported on the wall. Take your right hand into the middle. Take your right foot right along the wall's edge, and then stack your left leg on top. And then open that top shoulder, back armpit to front armpit. And then if you want to lift the arm up, working for a straight line from my heels all the way to the crown of the head. Open the chest. You can look up to those top fingertips if you wish. If you come down before I do, you go down to plank pose, and then you can rest on your front body. And then we'll come down to both hands. You can lower yourself to your front body for a moment, rest on your forearms. And then we'll do the other side. So to all fours, back your feet into the wall. Now we're going to move the left hand into the middle. So we lift up to plank pose, feet are on the wall, left hand to the middle, left outer edge of the foot where the foot meets the wall, foot into the wall, top hand on top, open the shoulder, the top shoulder, back armpit to front armpit, soft face, extend that top arm up toward the ceiling. And then again, if you come up before I do, go back to plank, then rest on your front body. Lengthen. And then back to plank, and then lower yourself down. Rest on your forearms. And then push yourself up on all fours. Okay, so now we're going to do another version of this where you'll use the wall support with your head side. So I'll show you that. So now you just pull the mat away a little bit from the wall. And then, so I'll quickly show you. So with this one, I'm in plank, and then I put my hand into the middle, and now I'm digging the edge of that foot along the mat as we did in Anantasana, and then stack that top arm up. And this time we'll use the wall for support on this end. So it allows us to open up back armpit to front armpit, draw those outer hips toward each other, extend through the inner heel, big toe mound. And then if you want to, you can lift up from here as well. Or you can keep your hand on the back. And then we'll go to the center again to plank pose and go up the other side. So this one that we do, we won't rest in the middle on our forearms. Okay? So let's start together. We'll start out with your right hand, we'll go in first. So start out in plank. Right hand into the middle, right outer edge on the floor. Open up the chest. You can use the wall for support. So feet are stacked on top of each other, inner thighs going back, middle buttock toward the wall in front of you. Using that middle buttock to go forward. And then open the chest, back armpit to front armpit. And using the wall to open that up. And then if you wish, you can take that top arm up. Straight line from the head all the way down to the feet. Plank pose or Vasistasana. Opening that chest. And then we'll come to plank pose, both hands together, facing down. Now bring the left arm into the center, outer left edge of the foot. Using that wall for support to get into your alignment. Both feet are stacked on top of each other. Inner thighs going back, middle buttock forward. Open the chest, back armpit to front armpit. And then you can extend that arm up, Vasistasana. Soften the face. Gripping those hips toward each other. All that hip awareness that you have from today. Spreading the arms. Chest up toward the ceiling. Then back toward plank pose. Stay strong if you can. And then lower yourself down for Chaturanga. And then now you can rest on your forearms. Our next pose is Supta Virasana. So it's reclined hero's pose. So you'll need some blankets and a bolster if you have one, or more blankets. It just depends on how far you go down in the pose. So I'll show you my setup and then you can get what you need and come back. So with this size blanket, we call it our shoulder stand size, fold it in half narrowly. So you'll do that with your 3 blankets or towels or whatever you're using. Okay, so your blankets will be folded like this. I'm going to use the bolster to show you a little more height under that. You can also put blanket under your knees in this pose. So it can be like this, and more blankets and more blankets. I'm going to put one down for my knees or my legs. You can also have blocks for helping with some of the height. You can put blocks underneath here as well, just lifting up some height for you. So it depends on how much height you need. Okay? So first watch, I'll show you the shape of the pose and do it quickly, and then we'll go through the details together. So first, we'll do Virasana, sitting upright first. So I take I reach behind my knees, take the calves out to the side, and sit back. So I will talk you through this, and then I'll remove some of the height because this is a bit too high for me. But from here, we'll move forward. And then when you go back, it's okay if you're not sitting all the way down yet. You can allow the knees to lift a little bit as you go back, and then the knees will go down as you lengthen the abdomen. Lengthen the abdomen, flow through the inner thighs, and allow those knees to go down. And then I'll support my head with some blanket. And then to come on out, I use my hands to lift up, come forward on all fours, cross the shins and knees, sit back, and extend the legs out for Dandasana. So if you need to go get some props, pause the video, go grab a bunch of props, and come back for the pose together. Sit or kneel in front of the bolster. Scoot yourself back so you can first sit on the bolster or your stack of things. Reach your hands behind the knees, grab the calf muscles, and take those calves out to the side. And then we'll do this together. So we're going to sit in Virasana for a little bit, allowing the thighs to soften toward the knee, to lengthen toward the knee. You can hold the knee a little bit, pull on the knee up a little bit, allowing for the skin to flow from the shin to the knee. Take your hands together and palms away for Parvatasana. Same arm work as Badanguliasana, but for some reason in this pose we call it Parvatasana. So press the palms up toward the ceiling, soften the face, lift that front chest, soften the face, spread the abdomen wide. And then we'll switch the clasp of the hands. So whichever thumb and fingers are on the front side, then you switch those to the back side. Palms away. If it feels weird, you've probably got it right. For your second clasp, press the palms up to the ceiling. Shoulders away from the ears. Spread the abdomen wide, back and wide, as you flow toward the inner thighs to the inner knees. And then release, palms face each other, allow those arms to come down to the side. And then scoot yourself forward off the mat, or off your height. And you want a little bit of space between you and your setup to go back. And it's okay if you're not already sitting down on the floor. And remember, now as we go back, allow those knees to lift until you lie yourself down, and then lengthen the abdomen to allow the knees to go down. Don't force the knees down, but let the knees go down as you lengthen the abdomen, that whole abdominal space. So flowing from the abdomen, softness, through to the inner thighs, inner knees. And then while you're in this, you might find that you need to prop your head differently. You might have to adjust things. But we flow from the shoulders toward the hands. Allow the palms to be upward, facing the ceiling, and open, half open, just relaxed. Soften the muscles on the face. And while you're in this pose, if you want to lower your height, you can certainly do that. We have a few more minutes in it. If you would like to lessen the height, some people go all the way to the floor. There's no better or worse. It's just whatever is right for you. So you might end up going all the way down to the floor. And again, lengthening through the abdomen, through to the inner knees. And in this case, you can take your arms, clasp your hands on the inner elbow, the thumbs on the opposite elbow, and lengthen. And then if you have your arms clasped overhead, then switch the clasp to the opposite. Sometimes when you're in the pose, you crave for a little lower or less height. Sometimes your body is asking for more height, so it's less intense. So listen to your body. There's no right or wrong. And then if you are on the floor, all the way on the floor, lengthen those arms up overhead. Bring the arms to your side. And then now everybody will come up. Put your elbows into the floor. Lift up. And then go forward to hands and knees. Cross the shins and calves. And then sit back for Anantasana. So press the roots of the thighs down and the heels down, but don't press the knees. Allow the knees to go down on gradually as we press the thighs down and the heels. Opening up the knees slowly. Soften the face. Our next pose is Sirsasasna, headstand. So if you're not doing headstand, you can just skip this part. The pose that we did before this, Supta Virasana, is often a pose that we use instead of headstand if somebody's not doing headstand. So if you're not doing headstand, you can skip this, or you can watch for future reference. For Sirsasana, fold your mat in half and then in half again, and put your mat against the wall. If you practice headstand in the middle of the room, you can, of course, do that. I'm going to do a quick demo just to show you the shape and the way to get in, and then we'll do it together and I'll talk about more details. So just to get in, clasp the hands together. So the webbing is together, but the fingers are relaxed. And then the thumb mounds just rest on top of, one rests on top of the other. Knuckles against the wall. Press the forearms down. Lift the inner shoulder up. Place the crown of the head in front of the hands. Curl the toes under. And then kick a leg up. And you might have to kick a few times to get up. Okay, so press the forearms, lift the inner shoulder. Shoulder blades into the back. Extend through the inner heel, big toe mound. Lift that top buttock up. And then to come down, you can come down with one leg and then the other. And then we'll go into Adho Mukha Virasana together. So now let's do it together. So just to get in, clasp the hands together. So the webbing is together, but the fingers are relaxed. And then the thumb mounds, one rests on top of the other. And then put the knuckles at the wall and the elbows right underneath the shoulders. Lift the inner shoulder, place the crown of the head down. Curl the toes under and walk your feet in and kick yourself up. So press the forearms, lift the inner shoulders up. Take your feet 6 inches apart or so. Lift the top buttock, the part of the buttock that's closest to the low back. Lift the top buttock up and then rejoin the feet. You can have your feet at the wall or away from the wall. Now if you're new to this pose, you might just go up, touch the feet up, stay for a moment, and then come down. But then as you go, you continue to build time in the pose. Another very important factor when deciding if you're ready to kick up is if your shoulder blades are in your back or not. If your shoulder blades are rounded back toward the wall, then you don't want to stay up in the pose. You want to build the structure of your upper back so your shoulder blades are into the back. So press through the forearms. Lift the inner shoulder up. Lift the top buttock up. Extend through the inner heel, big toe mound. Press the forearms down, lift the inner shoulder up, take the shoulder blades in, draw your front ribs back, lift your top buttock up, extend through the inner heel, big toe mound, bring the little toe side back toward the hips, and lengthen. When you draw that little toe side back towards your outer hips, draw your outer hips in, your outer buttock, and the middle buttock coming forward as well. So one more time, press the forearms down, lift the inner shoulders up, take the shoulder blades into the back, take your front ribs back if they tend to be sticking out, lift the top buttock away from the low back, extend through the inner heel, big toe mound, bring the little toe side back to those outer hips. Salamba Sarvangasana. And then to come down, bring one leg down at a time. Try to come down with control. And then back yourself away from the wall enough to do Adho Mukha Virasana, where your toe mounds touch, your big toe mounds touch, and the knees come apart, just enough to allow the ribs through. And then lengthen those arms forward and rest your head. Adho Mukha Virasana. So our next pose is Salamba Sarvangasana, supported shoulder stand or whole body pose. So we'll fold the mat in half and scoot it right up against the wall. And then we'll take the blankets at this size. So if you're using towels, you might need more. But the fold edge of the blankets are right at the fold edge of the mat. And then my head will be on the floor and my shoulders on the blanket. And then I take the setup, so the blankets are about 6 inches from the wall, maybe 8, maybe 10, depending on your body height, torso length. Okay? And so just watch first, and I'll show you a quick demo, and then we'll do it together. And of course, if you've been practicing this for a while, you can go straight in. So I lie down on my back. My head is on the floor. My buttocks goes up the wall a bit. And then using my legs on the wall, I lift my tailbone and my body up toward the ceiling. And then flow the shoulder toward the hands, toward the wall. And take the upper back away from the wall, the middle buttock away from the wall. Soften the face. And as you get this upper back and buttock away from the wall, you might stay like this the whole time, or you might put your hands on your back. You might keep your feet on the wall the whole time, or you might take your legs up. So in this quick demo, it's important to see how I'm on my outer shoulder, I'm on my top shoulder, and there's a straight line from the shoulder to the hips, to the knees, to the heels. So we'll work for that straight line. What tends to happen is the legs come over this side and the butt goes back. So you want to try to take the tailbone in, so the buttock muscles that way and the thighs back toward the wall. And then to come out, you'll take a leg back to the wall and slide right off so your pelvis is supported on the blankets. So now we'll go in together. So you'll start out lying on the blankets with your head off the blankets. And then your buttocks kind of goes up the wall, so we're close enough. And then lift the buttocks up, lift the whole body up, and then flow the shoulders toward the hands. Flow the shoulders toward the hands. So we're getting to the outer shoulder and the top shoulder. And then the biceps roll from the inside out. Flowing those hands toward the wall. Flowing the shoulders toward the hands, toward the wall. And then the upper back, the upper middle back coming away from the wall. And the buttocks away from the wall. And then you can either keep your feet on the wall if you're new at this, or you might take one leg up at a time. You might take both legs up. So we're working to get a straight line from the shoulders to the hips, to the knees, to the heels. Salamba Sarvangasana, supported whole body stand. Whole body pose, shoulder stand is often called. Now if you want to come out before we come out, you just put one leg at a time back to the wall, and then lower yourself down, slide off the blankets. So upper back away from the wall, middle buttock away from the wall. Lift those front thighs up and back toward the wall behind you. Extend through the inner heel, big toe mound. Bring that little toe side back toward those outer hips. Draw the outer hips in. So upper back away from the wall, middle buttock away from the wall. Lift those front thighs up and back toward the wall behind you. Extend through the inner heel, big toe mound. Bring that little toe side back toward those outer hips. Draw the outer hips in. And then to come out, bend your legs, put your feet on the wall. And then slide yourself off. So it's just your pelvis resting on the blankets. And then you'll take your time, and whenever you're ready, we'll roll to our side and lie down for Shavasana. So for Shavasana, you can lay your mat out or lie straight on the floor. Depends what's best for you and the flooring that you're on. You can put a blanket under your head if you wish. So when you first lie down, have your feet on the floor with your knees bent, and then use your hands and lengthen your buttock away from your low back, and then take your legs out one at a time, right close to each other, and then allow the legs to splay to the side. Flow the shoulders down to the hands, palms of the hands facing the ceiling, hands half open. And then from the top of your head all the way down to your feet, just completely let go. Soften the muscles around your eyes and the muscles around your cheeks. Soften your jaw, unhinge your lower jaw from your upper jaw. Soften your neck and throat. Flow your shoulders gently and softly toward your hands, relaxing completely from the shoulders to the hands. Soften the chest and the abdomen. And from the soft abdomen, flow through the inner thighs to the inner knees to the inner heels. And completely let your ankles just completely relax. So from the top of your head all the way down to your feet, completely let go. begin to come out. To begin to come out, bend your arms, put your hands onto your front body. Bend your left leg, put your foot on the floor. Try your right arm up and over your head. And then use the muscle of your bent leg to roll to the side, rolling to your right, as your right arm becomes your pillow. And then push yourself up into a seated position. Namaste.